Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on your journey to becoming a powerful communicator. Today's guest is Wanis-Ruiz. Yvonne is trying to get rid of the world of boring, so we're not doing any boring intros. Yvonne, welcome to Speaking with Confidence, buddy.
Tim, it is so happy to be here, my friend, and it just made me laugh. I love it. Yeah, no intros because it's one of the things I talk about is doing intros. No one really cares. People only care who you are afterward.
Exactly. But before we really get into it, you do something that is intriguing to me. Okay. You're a salsa dancer. You're a professional salsa dancer, and
yes.
That's not me at all. Tell me how that happened and what that's like, and give us some detail on that, bud.
Well, you know what's funny? I'll tell you all about it. And one of the interesting things is I ended up using teaching dancing as a testing ground for ideas on communication and education and learning. So what happened was, and by the way, you know what the funny thing is? We're talking about intros. Yeah. Every time I do a conference, I'm speaking, doing a keynote or whatever, they're like, Yvonne is this and this, and here's all my accolades and da-da-da-da-da. Dead silence. Then he's like, and when he's not doing that, he's a professional salsa dancer. And everyone's like, ooh.
See?
The only thing people react to. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening was I got this sales gig in a rural area, and I'm a city boy through and through. And I had disposable income. I was freshly out of university. Mm-hmm. But no friends. I'd never lived in this place before. I was super bored. So I just started taking dance classes as a way to do something in my evenings.
Okay.
And very quickly, I got really into partner dancing because it was honestly, just a way to meet girls. Then the ironic part is, the irony of it is, I got so into dancing that I had no time for meeting women.
There you go. Uh-huh.
And I still remember, to this day, I'll be dancing because I go to social dancing all the time. And someone will try and have a conversation, and in my head, I'm like, man, I'm just here to dance. I don't want to do all this.
I talk for a living. I do all that. I just want to be here and have a good time.
I just want to dance, baby. I just want to dance. So, and the funny part was, maybe for about 15 years, I've been teaching dancing. Okay. I used to do it as a full-time job. Now it's more just my fun little side gig. I do it once a week, And how often I would have an idea about how can I make this more interactive? How can I make this more engaging? Whatever ideas I had, while I'm teaching dancing tomorrow night, let's try it out. But instead of talking about, some new pipeline or reviewing financial statements, I'd be talking about, the side step or where to put your weight or how to do this spin. But I was doing the same things in those salsa classes as I was doing in my training workshops.
Okay.
So that when I came into the training workshop, I had already practiced how to do it.
Right.
Yeah. And it ended up being this amazing testing ground that to this day I think about, how could I do this in a dance class? Ooh, maybe like this. That's how I'm going to do it in the boardroom tomorrow.
Yeah. And I'm glad you kind of went down that route. I didn't expect that, but I'm glad that you did, because there's something that you and I really have in common, and that is we love to teach.
I thought you were going to say we're both 10 out of 10 good looking.
Well, we know that's not true. I'm like a 9.9. I'm almost there. I told you, I got the voice for radio and a face for voice for radio and a face for silent movies. I can't have this pretty mug on camera all the time, but
no, man, it's distracting.
It is. But we love teaching, right? That's what we do.
Love
right?
it.
That's where we shine.
So actually, you know what, Tim? Before you go on, can I just I'm going to be real with you. Just a moment of honesty here. Is for the last year and a half, 2 years, I've been so busy doing speaking that I've actually stopped teaching dancing, and man, do I miss it.
Yeah,
I love teaching. I love doing workshops, but there is a part of my soul that loves to just teach for the fun of teaching, and it's something I just can't stop doing. And when you said that, it made me think of man, I actually really miss teaching dancing. I need to get back into it because it was just it's no money. It's just pure there's a need. I just have to do it.
It feeds the soul.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And it sounds a little cheesy to say, but I think about it all the time. Last year, so I'm like, man, I just want to get in front of a group of people and show them how to do like an inside turn.
Hey, whatever it is, man. And that's the key, though, right? I mean, because if and I just think back to a few years ago when I was so engrossed in work that there was no fun. I was teaching and I enjoyed it and that's great, but I mean, it was just there was that something missing.
Yeah.
And so you've got to do those things that uplift you, that feed your soul, that really get you going. That's outside of our normal everyday work life, right? And that's what it is. That's what keeps us fresh. That's what keeps us sharp. That's what keeps us strong, and moving towards our why, whatever that why is for each of us, in whatever it is that we do.
You know what else is like that for me is, as you saw, we talked about this offline. Is I MC events.
Yes.
So I'm that guy that when you come into the stadium is like, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem. Like I do that kind of stuff. And there's not a lot of money in hosting and emceeing, but man, do I spend so much time trying to find gigs to host an MC. So if anybody's listening and you need an MC, let me know, because it's just another one of these things that feeds my soul. I don't know what it is. When I'm at an event or a concert, I see a stage, I see someone doing an introduction, and I have to like stop myself. I can't enjoy it because I'm like, you are doing a discredit to who you're introducing right now.
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing a discredit to the crowd right now. I've actually done it where I've gone up to people like, I'm just wondering. Just like, imagine you're at a concert. Some guy's like, excuse me, can I get on the mic real quick? You can imagine their responses, but I just can't help myself because it feeds me. And I love getting on stage. I love getting a crowd hyped. I love that idea of like, making people so excited. And here's one of the things I always say. Most people will host an event and they'll ask people to be excited. Make some noise. Come on, you can do better than that. Make some noise. And it's always forced and contrived.
Yes.
Instead, give them a reason to make noise.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love doing things like that. I love getting, I'll go into the audience and I'll jump into the audience. I'll get someone on stage and get them to do something and people will lose their minds. But that's the fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all those types of things about engagement and the things that we're doing wrong. But before we get into things that we're doing wrong, what do we, from an education perspective, and I know this is going to be a short list, but what are we doing right in terms of teaching people communication skills? Because we are doing some things right. It's not a lot, but we are doing some. What are we doing right?
Well, let me give you, I'm going to give you my opinion. And then Tim, I'd love to hear like what your experience was, because first thing you said in education, I just thought about a friend of mine who finished a master's degree and she showed me some of the presentations her teacher did. And I was like, this guy should be fired. I don't care what his education is. I don't care how knowledgeable he is in this subject. She's like, yeah, I don't remember anything from the course. And so many people say like, yeah, I don't remember anything from it. And like, it viscerally upsets me. Like I ended up going on a huge rant. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm sweating because I got so upset. I've never met this person. I just saw this slide deck and instantly was angry because I take it so personally. Here's what I think some people are doing right. All right. There are certain educators, Sugata Mitra, for example, and we can talk about Sugata. He had probably the most popular TED Talk of all time. And he's been a big advocate for teaching in an entirely new way. And there are certain people that are doing teaching in this new way, but it's hard to break out of old paradigms.
Yes.
The truth is that if you are doing a class teaching communication, you have to do what you're teaching. So there are some teachers that are saying, okay, instead of, we're going to do this 12-month course and you're going to speak at the end of the 12 months, you're speaking in every single class.
Yes.
Every single class, everyone is speaking. There's teachers out there, some of them, and I've worked with a few of them, and I'm always surprised when this happens, when they say like, hey, the students are going to do all the talking. I'm teaching public speaking. I'm going to talk for like 20 minutes and then they're going to like work for the next 3 hours. That's stuff that is going well. Yeah. And we just need to do more of that.
The only way to get better at doing something is to do it.
Yeah. You can't learn. I always joke, listen, you can't learn how to change like an alternator by watching YouTube videos.
Right.
I tried and I had to call a tow truck. You know what I mean? It's like,
I get it.
It's not the same. It's never the same.
Right.
What do you think is going well, Tim? Like, what do you think? When you left academia and you make the joke, you're a recovering professor because of the frustration you probably experience, so what do you think they're doing right?
Well, not much, but it's the whole idea that they've acknowledged that this is important.
Yeah.
We don't
Okay.
know
I
how
like
to
that.
solve it yet, but we've acknowledged that it's so important that our students get this. And I think that I don't think that this isn't the right part. We haven't figured out how to do it right yet, because again, it's breaking out of the old paradigm, right?
Yes.
It's the solution. I can tell you what the solution is not. The solution is not 3-credit, 100 level communications course. That is not the solution.
No.
And every institution in the United States, it's probably this way in Canada, it's a requirement that you take a human communication, speech communication, whatever they want to call it, 100 level. You take it your first semester of your freshman year, and that's that.
And it's a BS class that everyone thinks about. It's just a BS class. Oh, so I'm going to talk about like my favorite color or some BS like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I actually? Sorry. Go ahead. You finish yours, and I'll jump in.
Well, what I did, and maybe it's not right, maybe it is, I don't know, is I forced my students to go out and actually talk to professionals. Go out. We're not sitting in the class every day. You're going to go out and you're going to introduce yourself and network with a professional and actually have conversations with them, and then you're going to come back and report on it and give presentations on it. The reason for that was twofold, right? Number one, to network. It's more than twofold, but it's one step.
You're a talker, not a mathematician.
2 step, right? And when you're networking, you're practicing research skills on researching who you're going to talk to. You're practicing actually talking to them, having an adult professional conversation.
Yep.
Right. And then you're practicing coming back and synthesizing that information, putting it into some form of presentation, speech, discussion type format, and then sharing that information and being able to discuss it. So we're combining a number of different levels here, and the only way that works is if you're open to going out and talking to those people.
That's interesting. That's a very cool, making it more practical by getting people to go out and do it in the real world. I think is a fantastic idea. One other thing that I will comment on is that gives me hope. I work with about 5 or 6 universities across North America, and those are at every one of those universities, and it's usually at the MBA level, but at any master's level, I work a couple of engineers and stuff too. They have always kind of recognized that this is something that both students are lacking and they don't have the right skill set for. And, hey, yay to me. That's why they call me. And
right.
So, for example, I take hope in the fact that, from University of Texas to the University of Australia to the University of Toronto and anything in between, there's a lot of places that are saying, Yvonne, what's it going to take for us to teach these people better communication skills? Because, and Tim, this is one of the things I always talk about. And I was just literally today, I was doing a session for a mortgage company. And I asked them this question. I said, listen, what are you going to tell me that I can't find out for myself in like a minute in a Google search?
Right.
Also, do you think AI is going to automate more or less of your job in 10 years? And it's more.
It's more.
So if your knowledge is no longer valuable and your technical expertise is no longer valuable, why you? What do you actually bring to the table? And I posit that the competitive advantage of the future is not knowledge or technical expertise. It's going to be in the way you communicate and deliver that knowledge and expertise. Yes. In other words, it's going to be your communication skills, because as much as we might like to pretend, at the end of the day, we are social creatures. We follow leaders. We listen to people. We decide whether or not to trust someone. So if you have the ability, think about, and I always talk about this, Tim, think about people, forget like CEOs, forget all those people, forget like politicians. Nobody cares about that. Let's talk about really persuasive people. Let's talk about the macho man, Randy Savage.
I love this. Go. Yeah, go. Keep
Let's talk about like cult leaders. Who is more persuasive than cult leaders?
Yeah,
Think about it. Let's talk about Bernie, what's his name? Oh gosh, now I'm blanking. The Bernie Madoff?
Bernie Madoff. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ponzi scheme.
Ponzi scheme guy. Mm-hmm.
Those are persuasive people. Let's learn from them, because think about this. Bernie Madoff took a bunch of people who are good at making money and convinced them that he was better at it, even though he had none. Right? A cult leader makes you give up everything you own based on nothing.
Yes.
A professional wrestler, forget about like some person who's like, come on, everybody, CEO, let's get hyped. All these like forced applauses during an Apple keynote.
Right.
No diss, Apple. You guys are okay with your speaking. Call me. For all the Apple employees listening, I know the thousands of you, just call me. Trust me, I can help. But like, think about a professional wrestler, how they get people absolutely nuts.
Yes.
And what are they? A man, a woman with a microphone in a stage and nothing else.
Yep. And everybody knows it's fake. Everybody already knows it's not real.
Yeah. But you can't help but fall in love with the energy of certain people.
Yes.
And here's the thing. It's not just about energy, or we can use the term energy to describe logical processes that they're actually doing to elicit emotional responses.
Right.
And by emotion, I don't mean happy or sadness. I mean adrenaline. Because that induces dopamine release. And we can actually identify what they're doing and translate it into physical tactics. And that's kind of, that's where my niche is. That's why I get all worked up when I talk about these things. Because once you realize this, you're like, oh my gosh. And then you start seeing it everywhere. And then you start figuring out how you could start your own cult.
Exactly. That's what I need. The Tim cult.
Uh-huh.
So let me follow up on something you just said.
Yeah.
You said the emotional reaction, right?
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation literally 2 hours ago. Okay.
Ooh.
And we were talking about, I'm just working on telling stories, right? I'm just, because that's what we do. And my wife was with me and we were talking about, she says, well, you're not getting deep enough. I said, well, first off, here's the thing you have to understand. Number one, I think there's way too many deep, emotional, dark stories. That's not who I am. That's not who I am. I'm a happy, we're going to joke, we're going to have fun, learn from the mistakes stories. The funny things that we do that lead us to say, looking back, say, wow, that's what I really did. Don't do that again. Type of things. And so when we talk about emotion, okay, why do we go to the sad trauma emotion as opposed to the happy, let's have some fun, learn from that emotion?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to say about that. And you make a couple of really interesting points, Tim, is that people feel like unless you cry at the end of the story, it's not a good story. And it's like, it's always got to be about trauma and emotion. And because I feel like people use that as the only source they can when they think about something that is emotional. We always think about drama and crying. That's what we think of as emotional, right? We don't think emotional as like what a stand-up comic does, but that is very emotional.
That is emotional, right?
Yeah. And so there is a societal kind of influence that like, oh, this is emotional. But there's another aspect to storytelling that I want to touch on real quick. Have you ever heard of the moth?
The moth, no.
The moth? For all the listening audience, and Tim, you might really enjoy this too. The moth is a storytelling slam/competition.
Okay.
So you can find it. It's a podcast. You can find it on YouTube. It's there's chapters of it everywhere. So I went to a moth in Miami, for example, and you go there and there's a theme. That night that I went, the theme was chemistry, and you put your name into a hat, and they call your names out. And if they call your name, you get up and you have to you tell a story for 5 minutes about the theme. And using the theme is one of the ways they make sure that they're not always. People aren't just going to come up and like, so here's the time that I was abused, because that can get a little much,
Right.
The other interesting thing is when you study really good storytellers, what a really good story does is it doesn't make you happy or sad. It does 3 things. One, it's an emotional roller coaster. It makes you feel several things.
Yes. Up, down, left, right.
Up, down. Right. 2, and this is probably the biggest one, okay? This is how the difference between good and bad improv as well. Many people focus the story on what they did to overcome a problem. But what makes a story really good is the problem, not the solution.
That's the solution.
In fact, a story, the really good storytellers, the problem is 90%. Stephen King is problem. Solutions are, honestly, the end of his books, I'm always a little disappointed because he's so good at building the problem and causing problems. The Lord of the Rings is just a series of problems. They get this, but now there's this problem. They get this, and now there's this problem.
Yeah.
And building up problems. And the last thing that, for me, that a story has that is interesting, that makes it kind of interesting, is uncertainty.
Yes.
Because many of the times you kind of know where a story's going. So you need to have the uncertainty. And I'll give you, can I give you two
Yes, please.
two fancy words,
Mhm.
two fancy words that you probably never heard of, but you use all the time?
Do it.
Okay. A tricolon.
Okay.
First, tricolon just means a phrase with three things in it.
Okay.
You heard
All
of the rule of three.
Yeah,
However,
rule of three. Yeah. Yep.
But you can use a tricolon in storytelling to create uncertainty, to create humor. And let me give you a quick example, okay? So a tricolon is when something, comma, something, comma, something.
Right.
The reason it's so effective is a tricolon. The first two parts establish a pattern. The third thing confirms the pattern, right?
Right.
So the way you can use a tricolon in a story to create uncertainty and also to have like some fun is you set up the two things with a pattern, and the third one is not part of the pattern because the audience, you're taking them on a journey and then you're throwing them a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's three things you need in life: food, water, and now if I hadn't said anything, you're expecting something like and love, right? But instead of like food, water, and the White Lotus TV show season 4. That's all you need in life, And you throw them a little curveball, and that they're like, ah. And if you can do those three things in a story, boom, then you got something.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's those types of things that you don't necessarily have to be on stage to do.
No, we all tell stories in conversation. That's why everyone wants a quote unquote conversational style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you go to a job interview, when you're in front of a team meeting, giving a report, it doesn't really matter. And part of the issue that I think we really struggle with as a society is we don't know how to talk to people. I'm not even talking about being on stage, right? We don't know how to take something like that and have a conversation with somebody. That's the real problem.
I think the idea that what you mentioned is, one of the problems in society is being able to like get people to open up and to have sincere conversations.
Yeah.
Can we touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, please.
Because I want to give your audience, for, the millions around the world, I want to give you something right now. Okay. This happens to me all the time. I actually did it today in a session. One of the ways we've been told to start conversations to show interest is to ask lots of questions.
Yes.
The problem with that is that it's only half the story. And if I only ask you questions, it becomes an interrogation.
Interrogation, yeah.
So, for example, you've all done this. You're at a networking event. So what do you do? Where are you from? You have any kids? You have any family? And the more of those questions you ask, the less someone wants to ask it. The less someone wants to answer it. And I'll give you another really good example. If you've ever been in a taxi or an Uber or something like that, and the person just starts asking you a bunch of questions, you're like, yo, you don't know me like that. Like, where are you headed? Oh, where are you going? Where are you coming from? You're like, no.
Right.
No talkie. Right?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
It's because it's one way.
Wait.
And in fact, when I was researching communication, one of the places I kind of researched was police interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to a couple of interview experts. And I said, what's the difference between what you see on TV and what happens in the real world? And this is a fundamental truth. And I get resistance on it all the time because there's cognitive dissonance between what people want and what people do.
Right.
They said the biggest difference is on TV, the cop is always asking a bunch of questions. But the more questions you ask someone, the less they want to answer them because it's one way. And they'll give you these one-word answers or very general answers because they don't really want to say. In the real world, we do a lot of talking at the beginning. We talk about all the things we know because the more we talk, the more someone wants to jump in. The more we reveal, the more likely they are to give us more information when we ask a question.
Right.
And here's the cognitive dissonance. I tell people that if you want to start a conversation with someone, Before you ask any question, you have to reveal some information first. And people are like, oh, no, people don't want to hear about me. I'm like, yes, they do. That's why you're asking them questions.
Right.
But they're not going to answer if it's only one way.
Right.
So can I give you a strategy, Tim?
Yes.
And I literally did this today, and it was really funny because I don't tell people I do this in my workshop. I just do it. Conversations happen. I teach them. I always get a question like, you really think that works? I'm like, what do you think happened when you walked in? And there's this like crazy silence. And it's something you did naturally when we first met.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. I kind of yes-and it. And that's why for the listening audience, Tim and I were met for like a 15-minute conversation that turned into like almost an hour.
An hour.
Because we just kept finding more and more things in common. Mm-hmm. And the connection was just there. And it's partially because, you're a charming guy, you know how to communicate. But it was also because we use these subtle tactics. So here's the tactic. You know what? When you go up to someone and say, hey, how you doing? If you just say, I'm fine, how are you? They're going to say, I'm fine, and you'll have nothing to talk about.
Exactly.
So you always defer like, hey, it's hot outside. Hey, it's cold outside. Hey, so what are you doing? You're like, get me out. Get me out right now. I'm done. Get me out.
I'm already bored.
Get me out. Instead, I always throw out something that I've just done or I'm looking forward to doing. Today, for example, the first two people that walked into the training session I was doing, I've never met any of these people. It's totally, I'm working at this company. They've never met me. I don't know them. First person walked in. It's like, how are you doing? It's like, well, I'm loving this bubbly that they gave me to drink. And they're like, oh, you like sparkling water? I said, yes. That turned into like a 10-minute conversation about vanilla ice cream, chocolate chips, eating. And as more people came in, they were like, the conversation kept flowing simply because I revealed something.
Right.
And I'll give everyone an experiment. Here's my experiment for everyone. Okay. If you ever meet someone, the one thing people don't really like answering is, where do you live? Yes. So what part of town you live in? Like, if I don't know you, like, especially nowadays, we think everyone is crazy, right?
Yeah.
We're as a society, as a society, like when I was a kid, my parents would let me walk like 4 blocks away, go to school. Like, no one does this anymore. I used to take the bus across town through like one of the ghettos in the city I grew up in. And I was in grade 7. No one, I'm 12 years old. You never see a 12-year-old alone. Anyway.
No.
Side tangent. If you just say, so what part of town you live in, you're going to get like, the east side. Like, no one wants to really tell you, right? So what I do is I always tell people what part of town I live in. And then it's just like the easiest thing in the world for them to answer. Mm-hmm. So for example, I'm in Toronto right now. And I've done this. Everyone do this. Say, I live in the Annex. How about you? People are just like, oh, I live over there. That's not too far. Like, and they'll just start telling me everything about where they live, just because I reveal something first.
I do the exact same thing. I'm a full-time RVer. I live in the RV park right down there by Sea Pines. They say, oh, really? And off we go.
And then right away they'll tell you about, oh, I live over here.
Off we go.
I've been there. And,
mm-hmm. Yep.
And and this is the thing, really. Good communication, like this tactic, for example, it's transparent.
Yes.
You don't even know it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You just see the impact of it. And the only way that happens, I always say, it's sort of like kissing. Tim, have you ever kissed anybody?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
My hand earlier.
So you think back to when you first kissed someone, when you're a little kid. You're like a teenager and you kiss for the first time, and it's kind of like uncomfortable and awkward, and you don't really know what to do. And like, is this it? You don't know. But the more you do it, I've heard, the better it gets. This little strategy, I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word for it.
Uh-huh.
This strategy is the same thing. The first few times I did it, it was a little weird. It seemed a little forced. I do it now all the time. No one even knows. And I just connect with people super fast.
Mm-hmm. And let me add something to that.
Sure.
And I can hear my listeners right now, and they're saying, some of them are saying, well, that works for you because you're outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan, you don't know this, but I'm a raving introvert. Okay. But guess what? You can still do that. If you're an introvert, you can still have these types of conversations, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to sit over on the wall. you may not have as many of those conversations. You may have to do some things leading into those conversations, but don't think that you can't learn to do those same types of things.
Can I give some advice to the introverts listening?
Please.
Number one, suppose you use this strategy and you're terribly shy. You don't know what to say. I'm the shy person. I'm talking to Tim and I know I'm introverted, but I'm going to try the strategy.
Mhm.
It's going to be obvious that I don't know. I'm not a good talker, but now I've given Tim something to talk about that I have interest in potentially, or to ask me questions about. So now I don't have to worry. I can just respond. So for example, if I'm super shy and you say, Yvonne, how you doing? And I say, good. I'm going out for dinner with my friends after this. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great.
Now
Where
you can ask me questions. You can tell me where.
I'm going to say, where are you going? First time I say, oh, where are you going? Have you been to this place? So, have you been to that place?
Yeah. And if you can see that I'm nervous, at least now you have a launching board to start to talk.
Right.
So you can be like, okay, this guy looks like he's very shy, very timid. I'm going to talk. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but it gives us a direction.
Absolutely.
Here's another, but let me give you some advice because yes, Yvonne, that's great. Tim, that's great. Still, I don't feel comfortable doing it. Fine. We're wrong. You're right. What else can we do? If you understand or you recognize that communication is important, but you are an introvert, you don't know how to do it, and you're very shy, you have social anxiety, do not go to networking events. Volunteer at them.
There you go. That's a good one.
I developed a lot of my kind of interpersonal skills by working the coat check when I was in university at various events. I joined all these clubs. I had no interest in any of these clubs. I just needed to go out. And whenever they said, do you want to just attend? I'm like, no. Can I do the registration? Can I do the coat check? Do you need someone to run the bar? Why? Because it allowed me to have a role which brought people to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I reached my social kind of limit, I could hide behind my role.
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah, and it let me meet way more people than everyone else would at a networking event just by volunteering at it or by attending than just by attending.
I heard another one very similar to that recently. And what the person said was they got there early and they stood by the door like they worked there and just, hi, I'm
Was that
so-and-so.
me? Did we talk? Because that's what I tell people to do that. That might have been me in our last conversation.
No, it was actually at a conference, and
it's a great strategy.
And so and you already know who you want to talk to there, but you shake hands and you see everybody hi, and they see you, and then they come back later. Hey, I know you from somewhere or this, and that's a great idea. It's figuring out a way to do this in your parameters. Mm-hmm. Still, remember now, you still have to add the value to the other person, but you figure out how you can live in that space and be successful.
One of the other places that I say that it's always great to stand, that will kind of like just from social awkwardness will make people talk to you. Stand at the end of the buffet, stand at the end of the food. Like, you know where the coffee is, wherever the cream and sugar is, just stand around there and people will be like, oh, are you waiting? No, go ahead, please. And it'll lead to small little conversations. It's another way to dip your toe.
Yeah, but I'm not allowed to stand near the dessert area.
That's why I said the coffee station, my friend. Coffee, yes. No cream, no sugar.
See, then I'll be up all night too. I mean, we're good. I could. That'd be awesome. I love this conversation because we think so much alike and we're not doing it the same way, right?
Yeah.
And it's we're trying to get people to understand, get their face out of their phone, see what's actually in front of you, and actually engage in that. And when we do this, going back to one of the first things we talked about, education. Whether it's you're speaking, you're on stage, you're a teacher, what have you. How do you know if somebody's actually listening if you're up there doing all the talking, right? How do you know that whatever message you're trying to impart your wonderful knowledge on, if it's actually getting through?
Yeah. I always say, Tim, if you're doing all the talking, how do you know anyone is listening?
Listen, yeah.
If you're doing that's one of the things that when I do keynotes and I guess my kind of competitive advantage, my value proposition is I say that and I say, imagine a keynote where the audience is also keynoting. Because I'm very interactive. I get people talking. So I brought him up earlier. So to answer this question, I want to talk about the mighty Sugata Mitra. Okay. A name no one here has heard of. I invite everyone, after you like and comment on this podcast episode, put all the comments in the envelope, to after you do that and like this video and share it with 5 friends and tell everyone you know about it. After all of that, go on YouTube and find Sugata Mitra's first TED Talk from like 2008 or something like that, because his ideas still apply. And this answers your question. So here's what Sugata Mitra did. And it's a fascinating story, Tim. Just by virtue of the experiments, it's interesting. But also, he has a kind of a very kind of calm, he's got a couple of nice jokes. He's a good speaker. So here's what made him famous in the world of education. Because he's like us in that he is trying to dramatically change the way we perceive learning. It's something that no one wants to do, but it's just so evident. Anyway, he became famous because he put a computer into a wall in a slum in New Delhi. I believe it was New Delhi. In a slum where people were illiterate. And he just put a computer in the wall and said, let me see what happens. And then he recorded it. And he showed how within hours, kids started using the computer. These are illiterate kids who do not speak English. A few hours later, they're on the internet. They figured out how the internet works. A few hours after that, they're teaching other kids how the internet works. Before you know it, days later, there's huge groups of kids around this one computer, and they're typing in English. They're going and finding games online. From that, he extrapolated and he did a bunch of experiments in learning. And here is how he's identified the most functional form of learning. Number 1, you give people an open-ended challenge.
Okay.
Number 2, you make them work in groups. Number 3, you give them a shared information source. Meaning, if there's 3 of us in a group, there's only one computer. We're not all on our own computers. Okay. That's it. In every one of my sessions, I am constantly doing a challenge with group work. And then here's my little addition. There's always a deliverable. There's always something they have to do at the end. And then no one knows who's going to do it. So let me give you an example.
Oh, wow.
Give me any topic. Give me just any topic you've taught or you've seen taught, you've talked to someone about. Any topic.
Let's elevator pitches.
Sure. So let's say I want to teach everyone elevator pitching. Most people would just say, here's how you do an elevator pitch. Here's the elements of an elevator pitch. Everyone practice your elevator pitch. Here's what I would do. And this is like, I have one technique for elevator pitching, and it's called a log line. It just has 3 parts. I would teach them the log line. I would give them some examples, and then I would say this. All right, everyone, you're going to get into a group of 3 or 4. All right. One person can have a phone or a laptop. No one else can. If you want to find someone if you want to cheat, go on AI, make examples, but only one of you can do it. You have to share your phone. I need you to make a log line. You only have 2 minutes. And when you're done, I'm picking random people to get up in front of everyone and tell us your log line. What have I done? Number 1, open-ended challenge.
Yep.
Number 2, group work. Number 3, shared resource. But then here's even more magic. There's 2 other elements. I don't know if you spotted it, Tim. Can I put you on the spot? And Don't worry if you don't get it, because if I did my job right, they're transparent. You don't really notice them. I did 2 other things. What do you think they were?
One is you put everybody on notice that you better be prepared because you're going to have to talk about it. You're going to have to do it.
And they don't. That's one of them. Right. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I don't. Hit me with the other one.
Yeah, that's okay. That was the important. If you say everyone's going to pick one person from their group, right away I can chill because I know I'll just nominate the most outgoing person in my group.
Right.
If we don't know, damn, we all got to work.
Right.
But then I always give an unrealistic time constraint, but allocate more time. 2 minutes is nowhere near enough time to even write something down. I allocate 10 minutes in my head, but I say you have 2 minutes, go. You know what happens? People do this. We only got 2 minutes, and they hyper.
Let's go. Right.
Yeah. And then when it's all said and done,
I like it.
Yeah, you see what we've done is we've created an environment where I've managed to teach, but that was the minority of the time.
Right.
The rest of the time is them working, problem solving, and presenting. And then my job is, as they're working, I'm walking around coaching.
Yes.
Then by getting people to go up in front of everyone and then coaching them, I'm teaching what I normally would lecture.
Right.
And this is how we have to start working on things. Because again, think about this. People are saying, how do we stop AI in the classroom? You don't. You don't stop the internet in the classroom. You work with it. I tell people, use AI. I don't care. You only got 2 minutes, but when you're done, I'm going to coach you through anyway.
Right.
And what it does is it makes extremely interactive, dynamic learning environments that, more importantly, you actually know if people are learning or not, because they're doing it the whole time.
They're doing it, and you see it, and they're talking about it. You see, that's, for those that have never been in that type of situation, you actually see them and the discussions and the work and the writing and the questioning within the group. Will this work or that work? And you actually see that going on. And you, as the coach, as you're walking around, you can take, if somebody has asked a question, you can say, that's a great question. Did you think about this? Oh, you really, you nailed that answer. How about from this perspective? And then you can get them to think even on a deeper level from whatever position it is that you've seen them from.
And another really interesting thing that Sugata talked about in another lecture he did, because I'm a very big fan of this guy. Sugata, if you're listening, call me, baby. Return my phone calls. But Sugata talked about, when in the world are you expected to memorize 3 months worth of information and then verbally regurgitate it outside of university? Never. So we're teaching people skills that has two traps. The first is we're teaching people skills that they won't use in the real world. The second, that means that the system is set up to only reward those people who are good at that skill, at memorization and regurgitation. He says you should get every SAT exam, every finals exam, you should give kids the internet. And we shouldn't be asking them any kinds of questions that involve just remembering information. Because just like in the real world, if you don't know the answer, give me 2 minutes, I'll just look it up.
Right.
And that, I think, there's so much pushback on that. But I want to give you one little funny anecdote about this, right? Because people say, if we do that, we're going to ruin the way kids won't be able to think anymore.
Well, they're not, number one, they're not thinking now.
They're not thinking, because we're not teaching them how to think. We're forcing them to do things they would never do in the real world.
Right.
That same argument came up when the internet was first a thing. That same argument came up when CDs and cassettes, people are just going to be able to listen to everything. No one's going to read. There is a very famous, I read in a book, there's a very famous diatribe that was by Aristotle. And he talked about the death of the human mind because of this newfound book technology. And now no one's going to have to remember anything because they'll just be able to look it up in a book. And it's the death of human thinking. And that's insane to think about now. But at that time, you can see the same argument over and over. Right. They were talking about books, what we think as the epitome of knowledge, as something that is basically this is going to give everyone brain rot, because now no one's going to memorize anything. They're going to be able to look it up in a book.
It's funny when you think about it, actually, and now we have AI.
I was just using it in my workshop today. I always teach people how to cheat. Do you want to hear a cool example of how I do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so by the way, I forgot to tell you the other thing. Remember I told you the 2 words that you've never heard of before, but you use all the time?
Yes.
The tricolon, and the other one is anaphora. Good old anaphora. These are terms that are in literature. Anaphora, is when you repeat the same word in every part of the tricolon.
Okay.
And you and I are going to do this right now, okay? Listening audience, let's all do this right now. Because if I told you, hey, listen, Tim, I want you to pitch yourself using a tricolon with anaphora, go. You'd be like, what is a tricolon? What is anaphora? And also, in the moment, you can't think of anything. Do you have your phone with you? Let's do this right now, just for fun, right? This will be a fun little experiment. Okay. Can you go on to your favorite AI, your ChatGPT, whatever it is, okay?
Yeah. Actually,
all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this with you right now in real time. And this is what I did with the team. I'm like, yo, cheat. Use the AI to get your ideas, then make it your own. So in a moment, we are going to make a value proposition for ourselves using a tricolon and anaphora. The rule of 3, and you repeat something in every part. Okay? Let me show you right here. And I'll tell you, I'm verbally doing this right now because it's way easier than typing. Ready? Here we go. So I want you to make a tricolon with anaphora so I can pitch myself as a communications coach. My strategy is that I am very interactive, and I believe that if you don't have interaction and people conversing when you're trying to teach them, you're actually not teaching them anything. Please give me 3 examples of a value proposition using tricolon and anaphora. One very provocative, one very conservative, and one that is very funny. This is one of the ways we can work with AI. Whatever it gives me is not going to be perfect, but I can start using this as a foundation to make something that's really cool. So, Tim, if you're doing the same thing, it's taking a moment to think. I'm going to give you mine, and then you're going to give me yours, okay?
Okay.
Tricolon, anaphora, give me 3 examples. And here it is. Ready? Okay. Ooh, okay. Here. Without interaction, there is no curiosity. And without curiosity, there is no learning. You see the repetitiveness? Without interaction, there is no. That there is no is the anaphora. Here's another one. That was the provocative one, which I don't think is very provocative. Okay, here's the conservative one. With interaction, people engage. With interaction, people understand. With interaction, people grow. And the anaphora is with interaction, and it's the 3 parts. Now, here's the funny one. If you wanted a lecture, you'd watch YouTube. If you wanted a monologue, you'd call your uncle. If you wanted real learning, you'd talk to me. Oh, actually, that one's not bad.
That's a good one.
Now, notice there's 3 parts to it, and the anaphora is if you want it. Now, what I would do in this situation, and this is literally what I did today, is I said, okay, that's great, but now I want you to combine them, change them, make them more personal, or make them more specific. And then before you know it, you get a fun little thing. But then here's how you leverage AI. I tell them this, and then Tim, I say, okay, memorize one of them, because in a moment, you're going to have to say it without looking at your phone. We don't have to do that part, but this is how you leverage it to make sure that you're not just doing AI, you're leveraging AI.
All right, so here's the first one that came up. I help people communicate with purpose, communicate with confidence, and communicate without sounding like a malfunctioning robot.
That's not bad.
I love it. I help people communicate with purpose, communicate with confidence, and communicate like they actually meant to open their mouth.
Interesting. See, and the first one is very much your personality too, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So basically I put one of them has to be funny. One of them has to be dealing with confidence, and one has to deal with communicating with value.
Okay, what's the last one?
Funny, confidence, and value.
No. Give me what's the one I gave you for the value one? Because you gave me 2 of them so far.
Hold on, before I do, I don't know where this one came from.
All right, let's hear it.
I help people communicate with purpose, communicate with confidence, and communicate without uhs, ums, and the awkward panic face. None of these actually say value. None of them.
Well, you know what's interesting to me, though, is that now that you have that, here's the exercise. You got to start, you and I, we have to start going, we have to iterate back and forth, but we can't look at them. Then all of a sudden, you start thinking of your own ways to say it. Then it becomes your own personal value proposition that not anyone can say. Yeah. And this is how we work with AI to develop our communication, not to hinder it.
Exactly.
It's ideas, and then we extrapolate those ideas through interaction and conversation. And look, that first one, I guarantee you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to save that. That's good.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm definitely saving that one.
Yeah. And then here's the thing. Now, every time you try and sneak it into a conversation, don't tell anyone at this. Like with your wife, be like, so how'd it go? Pretty good. You know, I had a realization. I realized, and then try to say it. You'll mess it up a little bit. And then the more you do that, the more you'll put it in your own words. And then before you know it, it's going to be supernatural. You're going to say it to a group of people, and they're going to be like, damn, Tim, that's good. I want to hire you for my next movie.
And that's the thing, because they're going to remember it. It's not
Mhm.
a canned, boring, my name is John. I help people with marketing
Exactly.
metrics. No,
Yeah.
it's there- it, pr- it's value, and it's memorable. They're going to remember it.
Yes.
And you want people to remember you, especially if you're trying to apply for a job.
And here's the other interesting thing. When you said remember, it's very interesting because when you do this, people never remember, even us right now, we
Right.
don't remember the exact wording, but we have that moment of like, I just
Mhm.
remember it sounding really good.
Uh-huh.
So when I think about Tim and I'm going through resumes, I'm like, oh, that's the one who gave me that cool little phrase. God, what was it? I can't remember. I'm going to ask him, but that was a really good phrase. We
Yeah.
usually remember the impact it had on us. Rarely do we remember it word for word, but because it's so rare for people to speak with impact, it stands out even more.
Exactly. Well, Yvonne, this has been amazing. I love it. We, you and I could go on for hours with this.
I think so.
And
Call me back.
honestly,
Bring me back next year.
we will get you back on again. That's for sure. But because we haven't even talked about your book, there's so much we haven't talked about. So you're definitely coming back on. I'm already telling you that. So put it in your calendar someday.
Be my pleasure, my friend.
Very, very soon. But in the meantime, where can people connect with you?
Yeah. So the company's called Public Speaking Lab. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. I think I'm on TikTok. Yeah, I'm on TikTok. It's just Public Speaking Lab. And the book available at fine retailers everywhere is called End Boring, A Tactical Approach to Communication.
For sure, next time we have you on, maybe we start with the book, because, and here's the thing. I mean, you know me now, and I always try and get to it, but it's always one of the last things we talk about. But I think that, especially with you in that book, maybe we start there next time.
Sure. Yeah,
Right.
and I'm actually working on a second book right now. Timeline, I'm not sure yet, but it's going to be exploring the dark side of communication, because I find, people like con artists and cult leaders to be and no one thinks about them as being highly effective, persuasive, like communicators. Yeah. We think of them as bad people, but Darth Vader found the light at the end. So I want to take that dark side stuff and use it to our advantage.
Yeah, use it for good.
Yeah,
use it for good.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, will you take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Tim, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for having me so much on the show. Thank you for everyone for listening. And I'm excited to come back and see you again.
And one more thing before I close out. I do want to thank you for saying we have millions of listeners. So now the challenge to all of my listeners and followers, go out and tell your friends, because we got to show Yvonne we do have a million listeners.
Comment on the YouTube channel, comment on the podcast, share it with 5 friends, make a post on Instagram, do it all, baby.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Tim. Bye, everybody.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forming for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change your world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.